Hi, everybody. Welcome to SCP Book Club. I'm Cthulhu. Welcome, welcome. For those unfamiliar, SCP is a collaborative writing project. I believe the largest collaborative writing project in history, where a group of authors come together and write stories about the fictional SCP Foundation, which is an organization which seeks to contain anomalous artifacts, phenomena, people, creatures, etc., etc. And every article in the wiki is supposed to be the containment procedures for one of these anomalous things, hence SCP, Special Containment Procedures. Or their unofficial motto, Secure, Contain, Protect. Either way. I've done this series for a few months now. I like to look at SCP. There are a lot of SCP readings on the internet, people just doing deep dives into certain topics and discussing the lore, and I think those are valuable. I think it's great to give people more of an entryway into the SCP universe. But I like to sort of look at these articles more from a literary analysis standpoint. I think it's very fun to figure out why these articles work, what makes them compelling, and see if we can pinpoint that and what lessons we can take from it as far as storytelling and writing are concerned. In this case, today's article is SCP-6506, La Muñeca Quitapena, which I found one day by literally clicking the random SCP button on the SCP Wiki, which, as the name implies, takes you to literally an SCP article pulled at random. And I stumbled upon this one, which blew my mind. I loved it as soon as I read it. I even wrote about it on my blog a while back. Yeah, it's a tremendous article. I'm a big fan. I even, in fact, before this stream, managed to get in contact with the author, OriTiefling, who has been so kind as to answer a few questions about the article and its inception. So I'll be talking about that after we read the article. But yeah, it's a good one. It's not one that's as focused on horror or really freaking you out. It's one that's more about using anomalies as a means to tell a compelling story, and doing so in a very effective way. So let's begin. SCP-6506, as you can see, the warning, the following file is level 4 classified. Any attempt to access this file without level 4 authorization will be logged and will lead to immediate disciplinary action. So right away they're telling us we're not supposed to be reading this. Why? Let's continue. It's safe. It's low disruption and risk class. Doesn't seem worthy of that kind of classification. It is currently held in a high security anomalous items storage Site 17. One member of containment staff capable of lucid dreaming must sleep with it under their pillow on a bi-weekly basis to screen its current status and mental health. Notice, following Incident 6506-1, no personnel below clearance level 4 are permitted access to the SCP or relevant documentation. So, something happened which caused the Foundation to have to tamp down security, make this thing not as widely known as it was. Description: SCP-6506 is a small doll superficially resembling a human female. It is constructed from a mixture of cotton fabric, wool, and wood. 6506 anomalous properties manifest when it is placed under the pillow of a sleeping human. Individuals who have slept with 6506 underneath their pillow report having dreams relating to stress or worries that are occurring in their lives. During this dream, a female figure made of cloth, matching at 6506's description, will manifest and begin to interact with the dream. Reports claim that this figure, quote, removes the worry, end quote, and that the dream turns peaceful after the figure demanifests. Subjects reporting feeling an increased sense of calm and peace upon awakening. Before we continue, we are going to have to discuss worry dolls. We're going to Wikipedia, baby. They are small, mostly handmade dolls that originate from the highland indigenous people of Guatemala. So this is an indigenous tradition from the people of Guatemala. They're handmade, made of wire, wool, and colorful textile leftovers. They're then dressed in traditional Mayan style. So they come generally from Mayan culture, from Maya culture. In the doll's original Guatemalan tradition, a local legend about the origin of the Muñeca Quitapena, hence where the name of this article originates first to a Mayan princess named Ixmocane. The princess received a special gift from the sun god, which would allow her to solve any problem a human could worry about. In traditional and modern times, worry dolls are given or lent to brooding, anxious, or sorrowful children. They would tell their doll about their sorrows, fears, and worries, then hide it under their pillow before going to sleep at night. It is said that the child relinquishes their worries to the dolls during the night, and by the next morning, all sorrows are said to have been taken away by the worried doll, and they can move forward refreshed the next day. Worry dolls have also played a role in modern pediatrics and child psychiatry. During a psychological interview with children, some counselors have offered a worry doll to the child as some kind of imaginary but trustworthy listener, allayer, and contact person. The doll, in turn, will work for psychiatrists, psychologists, educators, and parents as some kind of agent and troubleshooter between child and adult. Today, worry dolls are sold in huge quantity in Guatemala and Mexico. Nuns and poor children sell them to tourists as souvenirs. The dolls are quite popular since they're so small and thus easy to carry around. Yeah, they're, as you can see, they're very small, almost the size of a quarter, so very easy to just carry with you, have around, though I'm sure they can vary in size, depending. So, that's a worry doll, for clarification, but this worry doll, clearly, actually does serve its function in a supernatural sense. Now we get to the incident that was discussed earlier in the article, in the containment procedures. On May 5th, 2022, SCP-6506 was stolen from anomalous item storage at Site-43 alongside a prototype neuron imaging engine, or NIE. A machine designed to detect sensory information during REM sleep, dreaming sleep, and convert it to a video format. The NIE stolen was a prototype for a portable, undetectable model that sticks to the side of the temple. This prototype model also permits a transmission of auditory and visual information with an external viewer using a cell phone-sized external device. Basically, it allows you to record your dreams externally. I think when I was a kid, I had a handmade headband with a bunch of those little worry dolls on it. Aw, that's sweet. That's lovely. But yeah, so this device, put it on your temple, it's able to translate your brain's sensory information into a video format and record it. It was returned 2 weeks later with the following appended to its official file. Note, footage recorded by the NIE takes place in the first person. Analysis of data from the NIE used revealed the subject in question to be Dr. Ash Joydever, a senior researcher from the memetics department. Begin log. Footage begins showcasing a small room reminiscent of a Foundation interrogation room. There is a small table. Dr. Joydever appears to be sitting at it. After approximately 2 minutes, 6506 manifests. Excellent, you're here. You are aware of me? A lucid dreamer, then. My background demands it. A certain level of control over your subconscious can prove vital when interacting with particular anomalies. This makes my work easier, then. What is your worry? Point me to it so that I might remove it for you. Joydever appears to shake his head. No, this isn't about me. I need to ask you a few questions, and then you're going to help me. 6506's face grows terse, but it does not respond. The room shakes slightly for a moment before settling. First, are there any restrictions on who your abilities work on? No. As long as a person can dream, I can assist. It is my role to assist. Good. And you've never failed at removing someone's anxieties, correct? 6506 does not respond, turning its eyes towards its lap. Its hands are balled into fists, and it fidgets with its dress. I need you to explain. Anxieties and dreams are complicated. I imagine that someone like yourself is aware of that. Some anxieties involve problems I cannot address, or that are deeply hidden away in a place I cannot reach. I cannot solve every problem, but I can at least leave a sense of peace. So they'll at least come away feeling better? Yes. I am Ixmocane, a Muñeca Quitapena. It is my duty to ease the pain of those who use me. Ixmocane, of course, being the name of the princess from that Maya legend. Good enough. You wanted my aid, yes? Is it with that? 6506 looks down towards Joydever's hands. Joydever likewise looks down, revealing that his hands are bound with a pair of handcuffs. No, I already told you this isn't about me. It's about her. A female figure dressed in a Foundation lab coat manifests beside the table. She appears exhausted with deep, dark circles around her eyes. Her hair is tied back in a messy ponytail. The sound of a heartbeat can be heard for a moment. Dr. Esperanza Velasco Iglesias, a a colleague of mine. Her work quality has decreased dramatically this past year. It's starting to cause problems, and she won't talk to me or anyone else about it. So you need me to enter her dreams and remove the problem, correct? Yes. Will you help me? 6506 looks to Joy Dever's wrists, then around the room. It appears to crack... Oh, there's a typo there. Joy Dever. Well, Ori, if you're reading this, there's a typo. I can fix it for you later, it's okay. It appears to crack a slight smile. I will. The footage is cut. End log. Next log. Footage begins in what appears to be a church, looking down an aisle of pews that extends far into the horizon. The room is narrow and appears to be in a general state of disrepair. What is this? Joy Dever's voice can be heard from an unknown source. Oh, it actually worked. What worked? Where are you? I'm still in the real world. It was a shot in the dark, but I hooked you up to an NIE. So he's using this recording device, put it on the doll, so that he can record what they are seeing, what Ixmikane is seeing. You attach something to my physical body? It's just a machine that lets us at the Foundation see into dreams and talk to people in them. I can see everything through your eyes right now. This feels rather invasive. You agreed to help, just cooperate. Looks down, bringing the camera's perspective to the floor. It looks at its arms, inspecting the seams before inspecting the rest of its body. I appear to be unharmed from whatever process you put me through, so I suppose I'm willing to assist. It appears to begin walking down the aisle, but is interrupted by the sound of wooden doors opening behind it. It turns around, revealing a woman standing in the church's doorway. She trembles slightly. Esperanza. Are you certain? This does not look like the same woman from your dream before. It's her. I'd recognize her anywhere. Besides, this is her dream after all. Iglesias begins walking down the aisle. Her pace is slow and uncertain. She passes through 6506 and heads toward the altar. 6506 follows. Is there any way you can make this go any faster? I cannot. If I interfere in the wrong place, I could miss the anxiety I meant to target. If you want me to ease this woman's pain, then we need to experience this as it exists. The dreams I enter are often constructed from specific memories or experiences that one finds traumatic. As Iglesias continues down the aisle, figures manifest in the pews. They all appear to be the same figure. An elderly Hispanic woman with her hands clasped in prayer. A red stain appears on her chest, and the figures raise their heads and look towards Iglesias as she walks by. Iglesias? Iglesias meets their gaze and begins to run. As she runs, a voice can be heard echoing throughout the church. ¿Qué tienes, mijo? Which translates to, what do you have, my son? Which you might notice, it's her. I recognize her anywhere. This is her dream. What do you have, my son? Just note it. Iglesias continues running down the aisle. After several minutes, she reaches the altar and falls to her knees. She kneels and clasps her hands together. She's saying something. Get closer so we can hear. She approaches Iglesias. Even though her lips move, no sound can be heard. Are you close enough? Why can't I hear anything? There are a myriad of answers to that question, as likely as the other. She could simply not be saying anything, she could be trying to speak and nothing is coming out, and so forth. The voice booms through the room, causing Iglesias to jump. Come, my child, I will hear your confession. Iglesias looks toward the side of the altar. A confessions booth has appeared. She rises to unsteady feet and approaches. 6506 follows, peering into the priest's side of the booth. A man dressed in a stained white robe sits within. The camera pans up, revealing his face. He's young, with short, red curly hair and freckles all across his face. Why the hell does he look like me? Are you not a priest in your free time? 1, I don't have free time. 2, clearly I'm not a priest. Did she happen to see you shortly before falling asleep? Human brains cannot make up faces. It merely fills them in with the features of people they already know. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Confess your sins to me, child, so they might be forgiven. 6506 approaches Iglesias' side of the booth and peers in. They hold a strip of cloth and wring it in their hands. She glances toward the other side of the booth before looking back to the cloth in her hands. She breathes heavily. Shit. What's wrong? Someone's coming. I have to disconnect you. Just get her to the point already. I've already told you, I cannot speed the process up. We don't have a choice right now. Just get it out of her. 6506 sighs and waves an arm in the air. The scene speeds up. Iglesias sits in the booth silent for several moments, and then begins speaking. I cannot hear her. I'm going to miss it. Shit, we're out of time. The scene is abruptly halted. Iglesias throws her head back and shouts, I think I just killed my mother. The feed suddenly cuts out. So now's a good time to mention, this article does have some violent subject matter, some subject matter relating to dementia, subject matter relating to homophobia and transphobia, intentional and otherwise. So if you're uncomfortable with those subjects, I would suggest tuning out now, because it's kind of the meat and potatoes of this article, if I'm being completely honest. So, yeah, just wanted to make sure everybody was clued into that. The next log. Footage begins in the interrogation room dreamscape scene in the prior log. The room appears slightly more damaged than before, with a small crack running down one of the walls. The camera pans down, showing Joy Dever's handcuffed wrists. The camera snaps back up as SCP-6506 manifests. I can promise you that whatever your goal is, you are more likely to achieve it when you aren't attempting to be discreet about it. What am I supposed to do? Hey, Esperanza, I stole an SCP and some expensive equipment. Put this under your pillow so I can pry into your mind. There is no way to frame your actions that make this anything other than invasive. Are you aware of this? Joy Dever sighs, placing his hands on his head. You simply try it again, whatever it was you did prior. I just walked into the break room. Esperanza takes a nap every day around 1 p.m., and she's the only one in the room at that time, especially recently. So what interrupted us this time? Hello, first, you're actually second, but welcome. It's okay. SCP-MTF, welcome, welcome. So what interrupted us this time? Some jackass new recruit looking for directions or some stupid shit like that. Is there not an easier way to do this? The only easier way to do this would be to break directly into her house with you. I'm doing enough messed up stuff right now. I can't take it that far. But you can. I'm not breaking into her house. You don't need to be the one to do it. Allow me to do it. How? You're a doll. You can't move. You're basically not anomalous when not in a dream. 6506 sighs, shaking its head. Simply give me to her. Tell her it is one of my children. One of your what? Just tell her it's another doll, another Muñeca Quitapena. But people still make them. It isn't impossible that there's another that looks like me. Alright, that makes enough sense. I'll hook the equipment to you and give you to her. The room trembles for a moment. 6506 looks around. We can make this work. Footage is cut. The next log. Footage begins showcasing a small kitchen. I might not read all of this verbatim going forward, but I'll give you the basic things. One is an older stout woman, the other is Esperanza Velasco Iglesias. 6506 exhales, its breath fogging the air. Success. So you do know how to talk to women. I was beginning to become concerned. Ignoring that. Why isn't this the church? Why do you ask so many questions? The answers should be obvious enough. You've had more than one dream before, yes? Joy Dever is silent. Good, now watch, quietly. The woman next to Iglesias finishes washing a plate, holds it up. She turns as if to hand it to Iglesias he doesn't notice before putting it back into the sink and washing it once more. Mama, yo la ha lavado está limpio, which translates to, Mama, you've washed that. You've already washed it. It's clean. Hold on, I think it has an automatic translator. There. Wasn't an issue for me. But it was for me. I'd rather be able to understand what's being said myself. Mama, it's fine. You don't need to wash it. It's filthy still. I haven't cleaned this one yet. Yes, you have. You cleaned it a moment ago. She holds the plate up. She examines it closely, furrowing her brow. Yes. Yes, I suppose I have. The two continue washing dishes in silence. When is that Irish boy coming back over? He was such a nice young man. Iglesias sighs, tears well in the corners of her eyes. Mama, we haven't dated each other since we were 15. He's not coming back around. Oh. Right, that's right. But I haven't seen him in such a long time, it seems. Aren't you two still dating? Iglesias turns to Mrs. Iglesias and gives a half-hearted smile. Here, I'll finish washing the dishes. Just go get ready for bed, Mama. Iglesias grabs a knife from the pile of dishes next to the sink and begins washing it. Thank you, Enrique. You're such a good boy. The knife slips, cutting Iglesias' palm. He holds it in place, staring blankly at the sink. Enrique? What happened? Did you cut your hand again? Stop calling me that. I'm not Enrique. You know I'm not Enrique. I haven't been Enrique since I was 16. Oh, I'm so sorry, Esperanza. I didn't mean to forget. You know, these things take time, and it wasn't all that long ago you told me. I'm going to make mistakes. A I'm 34, Mom. I told you 18 years ago. You did? Iglesias begins sobbing. Mrs. Iglesias attempts to hold her shoulder, but Iglesias shakes her off. Enrique, where is my mom? What? Where is my mom? I'm tired of this stranger who looks like her. I just want my mom back. I want the woman who held me and told me that she loved her daughter with all her heart. The woman who never once slipped up after. I don't know who this is in my house, but it isn't my mom, and I'm tired of seeing her. Esperanza. Mrs. Iglesias attempts to hug Iglesias. Iglesias turns and shoves her away, causing her to stumble back into the counter and onto the floor. The knife she was holding prior clatters to the counter. She brings both of her hands to her mouth and gasps. There is a blood stain on Mrs. Iglesias' blouse over her heart. It grows and expands outwards until the entire blouse is covered with blood and begins pooling on the floor. Iglesias steps backward, grabs the knife, and runs. 6506 is forcibly dragged after Iglesias as she runs through a black void. What's going on? Why haven't you done anything yet? I haven't identified how to address this issue yet. Just grab the knife. Problem solved. That isn't how it works. It's more complicated than that. Iglesias flickers out of existence before reappearing. We're out of time. She's waking up. Come on, just a little longer. Footage ends. So, what we have here, so far, is Esperanza is a trans woman who told her mom that she was trans. We'll get to that later. Her mom is obviously not entirely mentally well and has started to forget that she came out, causing Iglesias no small amount of distress and dysphoria, obviously. It's unclear, obviously, how much of this is actually exactly what happened or how much of it is memory. Of course, things are going to become distorted in memory, but it's obvious that Iglesias has a lot of unresolved trauma related to her mother. And the detail about, I think I just killed my mother from earlier, seems related to this. It doesn't just seem, it is related to this. The next log. The footage opens in the interrogation room once more. The room is even more dilapidated than before, with a web of cracks forming on the walls. Puddles of water have begun to form on the floor. How the hell do you work? I'm sorry? What the hell do I need to do to make you work? How do I get you to do your one function? You are taking your frustrations out on me, and I will not tolerate it. Take a moment to gather your thoughts before continuing. Joy Diver slams his head down on the table and takes a deep breath. He lifts his head once more, shaking it. I'm sorry. You've done nothing but try to help me, and I'm not being fair. Thank you. Now then, to best answer your question, I do my best to give people the answer or response that they need. Some people simply need a hug from someone, so I do that. Some people just need to be told it's okay, so I do that. So what do you need to do here? I don't know, and at this point I'm not certain the answers lie in a glee. Oh, I didn't switch the camera back. That's my bad. Okay, I'm gonna start this log over. How the hell do you work? I'm sorry? What the hell do I need to do to make you work? How do I get you to do your one function? You're taking your frustrations out on me, and I will not tolerate it. Take a moment to gather your thoughts before continuing. I'm sorry, you've done nothing but try to help me, and I'm not being fair. Thank you. Now then, to best answer your question, I do my best to give people the answer or response that they need. Some people simply need a hug from someone, so I do that. Some need to just be told it's okay, so I do that. So what do you need to do here? I don't know, and I'm certain, and at this point, not certain. I don't know, and at this point, I'm not certain the answers lie in Iglesias' dreams. Not like we can get back in there again, to the face she gave me when she shoved you in my hands and said that you didn't work at all. Iglesias manifests next to the table, her face is contorted into a scowl. Unfortunate, but expected. That said, I think we have another option. Mrs. Iglesias manifests in the room. Mrs. Iglesias? She isn't dead. I checked the police and hospital records after last night. She was admitted to one of the local hospitals about a month ago. That said, I do have a question for you. Yes? Do you work on people with concussions? I should? I'm not certain, but I imagine it should work. Good. Let's get into Mrs. Iglesias' head. Now, another log. Footage opens on the Iglesias family kitchen. The room is bathed in a soft yellow light. Oh, on Sunday? What, yeah? What about it being on Sunday? I don't know what you're saying. I'm sorry. Mrs. Iglesias and a young child, believed to be Iglesias, stand over the counter. She guides the child's hand as they carefully chop avocados. They flicker for a moment. I see you were successful. Just a matter of telling the hospital you're here to visit someone. We shouldn't have any interruptions. This seems stable enough as a dreamscape. 6506 looks over to the pair chopping avocados. At one point, the knife slips, cutting the child's hand. She begins to cry. Shh, it's okay, my love. It's okay. Let me see. The child holds their hand out. Mrs. Iglesias wets a washcloth and presses it against the cut, giving it a gentle kiss. There, not so bad, see? No? You have to be careful in the kitchen, especially around knives. Mistakes happen, but remember, you can't let this scare you away from trying again. Let's get that wrapped up properly, and then we can finish the guacamole, okay? The two vanish from the room, Mrs. Iglesias, and then it reappears at the sink. Iglesias, now in her early teens, peeks through the doorway. Enrique, did you need something? No, it's nothing. Never mind. Hold it. I know something's wrong. It's all over your face, my love. Come, sit. Iglesias hesitantly enters the room and sits at the table. Iglesias places her hands in her lap with a tight grip. Mrs. Iglesias walks over with a plate of croquetas. She places it on the table and takes a seat. Come, eat. You'll feel better. I'm fine, Mama. Enrique, I asked if you wanted a croqueta. Iglesias' eyes go wide and she quickly grabs a croqueta. She takes a bite. There. Now tell Mama what's wrong. Mama, I think I'm... Iglesias pauses as if considering what to say. I'm gay. Mrs. Iglesias' smile fades and she stands. She walks over to Iglesias, who winces. She kneels and places her hands on Iglesias' shoulders. Enrique, you are the light of my life. I am more proud of you than you could possibly imagine. Thank you for telling me, my love. Iglesias pushes her face into Mrs. Iglesias' shoulder and begins sobbing. She embraces her, rubbing a hand over the back of her head. They fade. Mrs. Iglesias appears in the kitchen once again. The room is washing dishes. The room has changed with a few black spots appearing in various places in the room. Iglesias, now slightly older than before, runs in sobbing. They grab Mrs. Iglesias from behind, who drops a plate that shatters in the sink. Enrique, you can't startle me like that. I could have... She turns and realizes that Iglesias is sobbing into her blouse. My love, what's wrong? That stupid asshole. Enrique Velasco Iglesias, you watch your mouth. Sorry, Mama, it's just... Ash broke up with me. Shit. Ash Joy Dever is the name of the doctor who stole 6506. What's wrong? Nothing. Just keep watching. Mrs. Iglesias guides Iglesias off of her and gently grips her shoulders. Enrique, I want you to listen and listen well. You're going to meet a lot of men in your life. Some of them are going to seem absolutely wonderful and perfect, and they'll sing your praises before vanishing someday. Others are going to be awful from the start and make you think that you're the reason they can't be happy with themselves. Some will be a mix of the two. Someday, though, you will find someone who is neither. Someone who is kind and supportive, who loves you unconditionally and will always be there for you. Ash just wasn't that boy. How can you believe that? You don't have to have lived it to know it's true, my love. You are a special, wonderful person. Don't let anyone make you forget that. They fade once again. Shortly after, Mrs. Iglesias reappears in the kitchen once more. She's holding a knife over an avocado, but when she moves to cut it, she misses. This occurs several more times before she places the knife down in frustration. Several more black spots begin to manifest in the kitchen. She steps away and walks toward a kitchen table, grabbing a photo off a nearby counter before sitting down. She runs a finger over it, tears well in her eyes. The kitchen vanishes and Mrs. Iglesias stands in a black void. A voice can be heard echoing around. Mama, I'm home. Who are you? What are you doing in my house? Mama, are you okay? It's me. I don't know who you are. You need to leave right now. Mama, come on, it's me. It's Esperanza. How many times do I have to repeat myself? Get out! Get out! I know what to do. Do it then. Whatever you need to do. 6506 approaches Mrs. Iglesias and gently grabs her shoulders. Show me where she hurt you. The kitchen manifests once more, though large portions of it remain obscured by black spots. Mrs. Iglesias is washing dishes in the sink alongside Iglesias. Mama, it's fine. You don't need to wash it. It's filthy still. I haven't cleaned this one yet. Yes, you have. You just cleaned it a moment ago. So now we're seeing a repeat of the scene that we saw in Esperanza's dream from earlier. As Iglesias begins shouting at her mother, her face changes back and forth between her true appearance and her appearance as a child. She shoves her mother, who stumbles backward, into the table and falls to the floor. Iglesias raises her hands to her mouth and vanishes. 6506 approaches Mrs. Iglesias. He grabs her shoulders and lifts her back to her feet before wrapping her in a gentle embrace. She speaks in Iglesias' voice. I'm sorry, Mama. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Mrs. Iglesias wraps her arms around 6506. It's okay, my love. I'm sorry, too. I'm sorry I haven't been there. The dream fades and Mrs. Iglesias begins to wake up. So, obviously, as mentioned before, Mrs. Iglesias is having memory problems and mental issues. They were starting to seemingly not be able to realize that Esperanza is their child. They viewed their child and Esperanza as two distinctly different individuals, which is part of what was contributing to their trauma, coupled with Esperanza accidentally stabbing her. The final log of this article. I know my mother is in the hospital, Ash. Yeah, and you need to come see something. What could you possibly have to show me, Ash? Haven't you done enough? Just look. Joy Dever opens Mrs. Iglesias' hospital door. She sits up in bed and smiles towards her daughter. Mama? It's me, Esperanza. Iglesias runs over and embraces her mother, sobbing. Mama, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. I shouldn't have. Mrs. Iglesias wraps her arms around her daughter and gently rubs the back of her head. You already apologized, Esperanza. It's okay. It's okay. I'm sorry I haven't been there for you recently. I'm sorry that I keep forgetting how proud I am of the beautiful young woman I raised. It's not your fault, Mama. It isn't fair of me to hold it against you. You can't help it. How about this? They let go of one another. I'll do everything I can to hold on to you. You. Notes, messages, medicine, whatever it takes. In turn, promise me something. Yes, Mama? Promise me that you'll still let me be your Mama no matter what. Iglesias laughs, wiping a tear. She smiles. Of course, Mama. The room returns to the Foundation interrogation room. The walls are still cracked, and there's still water on the floor. I told you before, there's some things I cannot fix. Yeah, I know. I get what you mean now. But things tend to work out in the end. I believe we can say that we successfully removed the worry here. Yeah, we did. Thank you for your help, 6506. Though I have to ask, why did you help? 6506 smiles and taps a hand on Joy Dever's handcuffs. I told you before, this isn't about me. I know. My job is to ease the worries and stress of those who sleep with me under their pillow through any means possible. It stands and approaches the cracked walls. Sometimes it's an easy job, sometimes it's difficult. I don't always succeed, but 6506 slaps its hand against the wall, causing it to crack apart. The walls fall away and the room changes to match the Iglesias family kitchen. Mrs. Iglesias manifests across from Joy Dever. How did you... My dear Enrique is a special child, Ash. You know that as well as I do. Enrique is going to meet a lot of men in his life. Some will take advantage of him, but someone someday will truly love him. They'll put Enrique first, and they'll do everything they can to make him smile. Will that be you, Ash? Joy Dever doesn't respond. Mrs. Iglesias smiles. It's a lot to ask a child, I know. Let's just say that I have faith you'll do the right thing. Mrs. Iglesias vanishes. 6506 walks back over and sits at the table. She reaches over and taps a finger against Joy Dever's handcuffs. You did the right thing. Joy Dever's handcuffs open and fall off. He looks his wrists over before looking back up to 6506. Thank you. And that's it. I think this is a fantastic article. I also want to clarify something, because I was confused when I was reading this the very first time. I said all of it was Joy Dever's dream, the entire thing was to help him, not Iglesias? Or is the point that the last dream is Joy Dever's, and that the happy ending he dreamed for Iglesias and her mother isn't possible, but that he still did genuine good? We hop between dreams. The conversations between Joydever and Ixmacane, where Joydever is in cuffs, are his own dreams. When we're following Iglesias in the kitchen and church in her dream, or it's her dream. When we follow her mother's perspective, it's her mother's dream. I can see where the confusion is. Ixmacane sees it as her duty to relieve the pains and worries of those who use her by any means, and Joydever is someone who uses her. The only way for her to relieve his pain is by relieving Iglesias' pain first. The end is designed to show that Joydever is set free because the person he cares about, Iglesias, is better again. So, it's not entirely clear whether that scene in the hospital is actually real, if it's if it's Joydever's dream, if it's Esperanza's dream, if it's the mother's dream. I like to think that that Joydever is dreaming about this scene that happened that day. That they did go to the hospital, and what he saw is that, which then transitions into the same dreamscape he's been in. I'm not positive that that's the quote-unquote correct interpretation. I just like to imagine that it ends that way. And obviously, this part, the dead naming, is, I don't know. It's a part of the article that obviously some people in the comments do have issues with, and I understand it. This user said, I want to upload this, but I find it rather uncomfortable that the concluding happy ending dream memory was of Mrs. Iglesias dead naming her daughter. Yeah, I understand. And I think it's that whole aspect of memory and it failing is something that makes this article very compelling, but that also can be challenging. And I understand that. I don't know if it perfectly strikes that line, but it does a damn good job, I think. So what we have here is Dr. Ash Joydever sees that his friend, co-worker, and former partner, Dr. Esperanza Iglesias, is dealing with trouble at work, not getting work done, not telling anyone why they're struggling. So Joydever steals this SCP to infiltrate her dreams, finds out that she accidentally stabbed her mother and thought she was maybe going to have killed her, but by releasing the trauma between the two of them, doesn't fix everything, but is still able to at least help Esperanza be at least a little more at peace. Now, we are going to look at the interview I conducted with OriTiefling, the author of this article, who was very forthcoming with their answers, which is much appreciated. So, the very first question, I said, in the discussion page for 6506, you mentioned part of the inspiration for the article being that you were gifted a Muñeca Quitapena, and that dreams as a topic were on your mind. What brought you to decide to explore this topic in an SCP format? The SCP format is such a unique storytelling format, and as a form of weird fiction, it was the perfect host for this idea. If nothing else, it's just fun to explore concepts within the framing of SCP. Weird fiction, to be clear, as a definition, a subgenre of speculative fiction originating in the late 19th or early 20th centuries. Weird fiction either eschews or radically reinterprets traditional antagonists of supernatural horror fiction, such as ghosts, vampires, and werewolves. Some examples of this would be China Mieville, H.P. Lovecraft, Clark Ashton Smith. Lovecraft is probably the most well-known example. But as far as actual works in the genre, let's see. You've got a lot of H.P. Lovecraft. House of Leaves by Daniel Lusky is a good example. The King in Yellow by Robert Chambers. That sort of surreal blending of the ordinary and the extraordinary. Sort of similar to magic realism, but not normalized. Magic realism, the idea is that the weird is just a part of the everyday. Weird fiction, it is strictly out of the ordinary. Everything in Lovecraft's world, everyone is like, that's not right. And that's, in fact, the point. So, how do the characters of Joy, Dever, and Iglesias come about? What motivated you to explore LGBTQ+ themes in this article? As a gay man, I think it's important to represent LGBTQ+ characters in my writing where possible. I had recently played AI The Somnium Files, a major source of inspiration for this whole article, and they had a wonderful scene involving a woman struggling with dementia. This gave me the idea to explore how concepts like family and gender identity interact with conditions like dementia and Alzheimer's, especially considering my own family's experience with these illnesses. And again, this is, I think, the crux of what makes this article so compelling, but also really challenging, is that balance of dementia and mental illness and Alzheimer's with the struggle of dysphoria and gender identity, and how there's not an easy way for those two things to coexist, leading to a lot of obvious trauma and a lot of resentment. There are undeniable magical realist influences throughout this article. How do you believe magical realism fits into an SCP framework, and what other avenues do you think still remain to explore the overlap between the two? Like I said, magic realism, for those unfamiliar, stories where the supernatural is just sort of part of the everyday, and no one really questions it. Beloved by Toni Morrison, The House of the Spirits by Isabel Allende, 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, all quintessential examples of this. Like I said earlier, SCP is a weird fiction at its core, an evolution of the creepypastas of old into a slightly new and flexible format. SCP is almost always magical realism by default, due to the nature of what anomalous means, at least in how we use it. As a result, I think it goes pretty hand in hand, and the avenues to explore are as plentiful as there are stories to tell. I can't even begin to describe what avenues remain open. Ultimately, what was your goal in writing this article? What did you want to impart, and what did you want to make your readers feel? My goal was to explore an aspect of queer identity I think doesn't often get shown in media. I wanted readers to really get to understand Iglesias' lived experience, and I wanted them to feel for her and know her frustration was valid, while also feeling sympathetic toward her mother, who was struggling. I also wanted to expose the wiki to a unique aspect of Mayan culture, something that is horribly underexplored on the wiki. I like to think I was successful. Again, this is what I was saying about you understand where both of them are coming from, but it's so difficult because neither of them are 100% right or 100% wrong. It's gray. It's real. It's real in the way that a lot of real life things are, which is what really grounds this article. What is the significance behind the entity being named Ixmucane? The Muñeca Quitapena is a quiche Mayan tradition originating in Guatemala. There are a few myths and legends associated with it. One legend states that a Mayan princess named Ixmucane received a gift from the sun god that would allow her to ease any worry or burden, and the dolls are a representation of her and her wisdom. Another, from the Popol Vuh, the Mayan creation story, I hope I didn't horribly butcher that pronunciation, states that the goddess Ixmucane created humans from maize, corn, and understands all their pain and worries, and thus creating the dolls creates a direct line to her. I wanted Ixmucane in my story to directly reference this, not just as an Easter egg, but to show my understanding and appreciation of the culture I was attempting to represent. So this doll is Ixmucane. All the other dolls are her children. Anything else you'd like to add as far as your thoughts or feelings about the article? Honestly, while it isn't one of my most popular works, 6506 remains one of my favorite things I've written on the wiki. I'm thrilled that it has resonated with people, and even more thrilled you guys are covering it. Please feel free to plug anything you're working on or have recently released. I recently posted a 001 proposal, Touching Eternity. You can read it here. I will post that in the chat real quick. Give me a moment. Boo boo boo. Boo 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 boo. Give me just a second, sorry. Didn't think about doing this beforehand. There we go. Okay, it's in the chat. I put their 001 proposal right there. It tells the story of a Foundation agent who tries to restore the world after time stops, and the man who would attempt to thwart him. Lots of discussions about what it means to be alive and human nature. So, thank you for your questions and interest. This music is so dramatic. It's so dramatic. Why? Stop! Okay. So, I don't have much else to say on this article. I just think it's a really, really well done exploration of the relationships between mental illness and, loss of memory with something like gender dysphoria, where someone has an established version of a person in their head and have to reconcile that with what they're telling them, what they're saying, no, this is me. This is actually me. But when someone is losing memory, when someone literally, out of their control, is losing long-term memory, it becomes difficult for them to keep that accurate version of that person in their head and instead go back to the version that they used to see as them. And as we saw in this, it can have drastic consequences, not the fault of either person, but simply as a result of how brains work and how gender works. And I love the idea of using dreams, showing both perspectives, showing how there is something to empathize with in both perspectives, how neither of them is 100% wrong. They're just people. They're people with their own idiosyncrasies and their own issues and struggles, and sometimes those struggles overlap in a way that is really costly, as we see in this article. I think it's brilliant, and it's such an effective use of the SCP format to tell a story like this, using dreams as the subject for this, to be able to see into everyone's perspective in a way that's not possible just through dialogue. I think it's wonderful. And again, I want to say thank you, OriTiefling, for responding to me on Twitter and for being willing to discuss your article. I think it's great. I think people should go read it. I don't have much else to say. Thanks for watching. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell if you want notifications. Tell me your thoughts on the article. If you notice anything I didn't, or if you disagree with my interpretation of things, I'd love to hear it. I think one of the great things about SCP articles is that there is such a great framework for people to discuss it, and that's part of the reason why I do this series in the first place. You can also join my Discord server. That's where I post my stream schedules and upload schedules. You can follow me on Twitter down in the description, or Instagram or TikTok. I have an Etsy store where I sell little polymer clay figurines like Pyramid Head here. Yeah, not much else to say. Thanks for watching. Hope you all have a good rest of your weekend, and I will see you in the not-too-distant future. Bye-bye.